The grip of fear, Ronnie Kray's reign of terror, the 1960s. London swung, but beneath the surface a darkness festered. Ronnie Kray, with his piercing stare and volatile temper, held court. His empire, the East End, his currency, fear. Pubs and clubs became his domains. Protection rackets lined his pockets. Disobedience was met with swift and brutal retribution. Whispers of his ruthlessness spread like wildfire. No one dared to cross him. He was the epitome of gangland authority. Ronnie, alongside his twin Reggie, operated with an air of invincibility. They cultivated an image of power. Politicians and celebrities rubbed shoulders with them. Yet beneath the veneer of charm lurked a chilling capacity for violence. They were predators, circling the vulnerable, exploiting the weak. Their grip on London tightened. The twins thrived on the fear they instilled. Word on the street was enough to maintain order. A mere mention of the Kray name could silence a room. A violent dance. The world of the Kray twins. The Kray's world was a whirlwind of violence and glamour. They moved with ease through the smoky back rooms of nightclubs. They rubbed shoulders with the rich and famous. They craved legitimacy. They sought acceptance. But their methods remained brutal. They used their fists to silence dissent. They used their reputation to intimidate. Their control over London's underworld was absolute. They ran protection rackets with an iron fist. They dabbled in robbery and arson. The police, despite their best efforts, struggled to gather enough evidence for a conviction. The Kray's network of informants and corrupt officials ran deep. Ronnie, in particular, reveled in the attention. He craved the limelight. He saw himself as a star, not a gangster. Cornell's demise, a turning point in power. The year was 1966. The place, the Blind Beggar Pub. A single gunshot echoed in the dimly lit space. George Cornell, a rival gangster, lay dead. The killer, none other than Ronnie Kray. This brazen act sent shockwaves through London's underworld. It was a declaration of war. It was a sign that Ronnie Kray was losing control. Cornell's murder was a turning point. The police, under increasing pressure to bring the Krays to justice, intensified their investigations. Informants came forward, risking their lives to testify. The net was closing in. The twins, once untouchable, were now firmly in the sights of the law. Ronnie, already unstable, became increasingly erratic. He lashed out at those closest to him. Reggie, the calmer and more calculating of the twins, watched with growing concern. He knew that Ronnie's actions were jeopardizing everything they had built. The seeds of their downfall had been sown. Behind bars, The Lion in the Cage. 1969. The trial was a media sensation. The evidence against the Krays was overwhelming. Witnesses recounted tales of their brutality. The jury delivered a guilty verdict. Ronnie Kray, the architect of his own downfall, was sentenced to life in prison. He raged against the verdict. He protested his innocence. But it was futile. The reign of terror was over. Life behind bars did little to diminish Ronnie's notoriety. He remained a figure of fascination, both inside and outside prison walls. He continued to court the media, granting interviews and reveling in his infamy. He wrote letters, penned poetry, and sketched portraits. He became a larger-than-life character, his legend growing with each passing year. But prison took its toll. Ronnie's mental health deteriorated. He was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. He remained a force to be reckoned with, even in captivity. The year was 1995. Ronnie Kray, his body ravaged by years of hard living and mental illness, died in a psychiatric hospital. He was 61 years old. His death, though not unexpected, sent ripples through London. The city that had both feared and idolized him braced itself for the inevitable media frenzy. The funeral was a spectacle. Thousands lined the streets of East London to witness the procession. Flowers, many bearing the message "Legend," arrived in droves. The hearse, drawn by 4 black horses, crawled through the crowd. It was a macabre celebration of a life lived on the edge. The media coverage was relentless. Ronnie, even in death, commanded attention. Reggie, granted compassionate leave from prison, was a ghost at his twin's funeral. He cut a tragic figure, his face etched with grief and perhaps a touch of guilt. He had spent years trying to distance himself from his past, to find redemption. But the shadow of Ronnie, of their shared history, was inescapable. The image of Reggie standing at his brother's graveside became an enduring symbol of the Kray's legacy. It spoke of the enduring bond between twins, a bond that even prison and death could not sever. It also hinted at the unspoken burden Reggie carried, the knowledge that he had played a part in their downfall. Reggie's attendance at the funeral was also a reminder of the unfinished business, the unanswered questions that lingered. What role had he played in their crimes? Had he ever truly escaped the influence of his more volatile brother? These were questions that would follow him to his own grave. The Kray twins, despite their crimes, have become cultural icons. Their story has been told and retold in books, films, and documentaries. They are the subject of countless articles, websites, and even guided tours of their former haunts. Their legend, it seems, is destined to outlive them both. The fascination with the Krays is multifaceted. On one hand, they represent the dark side of human nature, the allure of power and the seductive nature of violence. Their story is a cautionary tale, a reminder of the corrosive effects of greed and ambition. On the other hand, the Krays are seen as symbols of a bygone era, a time when London was a grittier, more dangerous place. They are romanticized as rogues, charming villains who lived by their own code. Their story taps into a nostalgia for a time when things seemed simpler, even if that simplicity was an illusion. The Kray twins' story is a potent reminder that violence and glamour are often uncomfortable bedfellows. They cultivated an image of sophistication and success. They rubbed shoulders with celebrities and politicians. They owned nightclubs and moved in elite circles. But beneath the veneer of respectability lurked a brutal reality. Their rise to notoriety was built on a foundation of fear and intimidation. They extorted money from businesses. They ruthlessly eliminated their rivals. They used violence to maintain control and silence their critics. The blood on their hands stained the silk suits they wore. Their story highlights the dangers of glamorizing criminal activity. The media's fascination with their lavish lifestyle and celebrity connections overshadowed the brutality of their crimes. The Kray twins' reign of terror left an indelible mark on London's psyche, particularly in the East End. Their presence was suffocating. Their influence was pervasive. The threat of violence hung like a shroud over the community. People lived in fear, afraid to speak out or cross the twins for fear of retribution. Their control extended beyond physical intimidation. They understood the power of fear and used it to manipulate and control. They created an atmosphere of paranoia and distrust. Neighbors were afraid to talk to each other. Businesses were afraid to refuse their demands. The entire community was held hostage by their reign of terror. The psychological impact of their crimes was profound. The Kray twins for a time seemed invincible. They operated with impunity. They had connections in high places. They instilled fear in those who dared to cross them. But their reign of terror could not last forever. Justice, though slow, eventually found its way. Their downfall was a combination of their own hubris and the tireless efforts of law enforcement. Their arrogance led them to make reckless decisions. They became careless, believing themselves to be above the law. Their empire, built on fear and intimidation, began to crumble. The police, under increasing pressure to bring them to justice, never gave up. The Kray twins' story is more than just a tale of two notorious gangsters. It is a reflection of a particular time and place, a dark chapter in London's history. Their reign of terror exposed the underbelly of society, the corruption and the vulnerability of those caught in the crossfire. Their story offers valuable lessons about the nature of power, the allure of fame, and the corrosive effects of violence. It reminds us that unchecked ambition can lead to self-destruction. It highlights the importance of a strong and independent justice system. It underscores the need for vigilance in the face of corruption and abuse of power. The East End has moved on from the shadow of the Kray twins. The streets they once terrorized are now bustling with life. The community they held hostage has reclaimed its voice, but their story serves as a reminder of the fragility of peace and the importance of confronting the forces that threaten it. The Kray twins' legacy is a complex one. They are both reviled and romanticized.